Hi everybody, this is Rehatch Designs by Tina Williams. Hope everybody's doing well. I have 10 thrift flips today, and all of these items are from either the dollar store or Dollar General. So number 1, 2, and 3 are these little houses that I purchased during Valentine's at the Dollar Tree. And I am going to be painting these 3 different colors. The first one is Abundance, and this is by Paint Couture. It's a mineral paint. I'm using mineral paint on all of these because they have a primer and a top coat, and it saves me steps. This next one, I'm using Fusion's Rose Water. It's a beautiful pink color. And I'm going over pink, so this is just my first coat on these, and I'll be doing more coats later. And then my last one, I am using Paint Couture Spanish Sunrise. It's a beautiful yellow. I think it's a perfect spring yellow. And again, this is a mineral paint, so it has a primer and a top coat built in. So now what I'm doing is I have Classic Elements by IOD, and I'm taking some IOD air dry clay, and I'm going to be casting part of this mold. I just put it in there, take the excess off with my thumbs, and then take a flat piece and go over it. And now I'm doing another piece of Classic Elements, and I did not do the entire part of that mold. I just did a portion of it. So you can definitely use your molds different ways. You don't have to use them in the obvious way. This one, for instance, is the Trimmings mold. And this is Trimmings 2 by IOD. So I put my clay in, and I push off the excess with my thumb because it has this micro rim. Makes it very, very easy to do. And then I go over it with my transfer stick to get flat on the back. Sometimes I use my brayer to kind of flatten the back out. I like to have the back reasonably flat. And now I'm just kind of messing with the pieces that I had cast, and I'm going to take some Titebond Quick and Thick, and I'm going to go ahead and put that on the top portion on the roof line. And I'm going to go ahead and put this piece from the frames mold on there. And I have to mess with this a little bit because it's obviously not meant to go on that roof line, but see where it cracks there? I can put it back together. That's the beauty of working with clay. And I'm going to be cutting off any pieces that I don't need, and I can conform the whole thing to that roof line. And just go ahead, take out the pieces with my palette knife that I don't need. That's why I love working with clay on things like this. And these pieces are not going to be sticking out quite a bit or too much, so they'll be fine. Now if your pieces were sticking out a lot, you would want to use resin. And I'm going to go ahead and put the other pieces on my other 2 houses, just like I did the first one with the Titebond. And now what I'm doing is I'm getting out my Trimmings mold. I'll be using Trimmings 1 and 3. And I'm just taking some clay and casting some smaller pieces that I'm going to put at the bottom of these little houses just to further decorate it just a little bit, just right on the edge there. And again, I'll be using my Titebond. And yes, I know that I need to paint the pink again, but we're going to do that later. So I go ahead and do that. And I'm going to be doing the same thing to the other two houses with different pieces of trim from the trimmings trimmings 3 and trimmings 1. Now I've let these dry for about an hour. The castings are not completely dry, but they're kind of hard and a little bit crusty. And I'm going to go over my houses again with another coat of paint, maybe 2. And I'm going to also go over all of the castings. And what that's going to do is that's going to keep them from overly cracking. It won't eliminate all of it, but it'll do a lot of it. And I'm going to do that to all 3 of them. So now what I'm doing is I have this cute decoupage paper, and it's called Dressed Up Bunnies. I believe I do have some on my website, and if I sell out, guys, I have more coming on Monday. But anyway, they're absolutely adorable, and I am taking water on a paintbrush because this is rice paper and it's very fibrous and it's hard to tear without doing that. But I'm tearing it that way so I can have an organic sides to it. And I do that on 3 different bunnies. And now what I'm doing is I am just taking some white chalk paint and I am painting the back of these, not going to the end, because I want these to show up on these colors, and having a white background helps. So after I've cut it to the size that I need to go on each one of these houses, I am taking Fusion's decoupage gel, transfer gel, and I'm going to go ahead and put that on. And rice paper is extremely easy to use. It doesn't wrinkle very much. It's very strong. The only thing you don't want to do is put too much product on it and overwork it, because you basically loosen up the fibers, and you don't want to do that. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put that down, and then I'm going to put some on the top. I go over it with my finger a little bit, but I usually don't like to use my fingers too much because your fingers are actually kind of coarse, and especially on rice paper, you can actually overwork your rice paper. So I just take my hand in a plastic baggie and go over it. And I'm going to do that to all 3 of them. After I get them all down, I take my heat gun and go over them. And what that'll do is that'll make the paper lie down. It works a lot like the ironing method. After those are all dry, I go over these with step 1, crackle medium by Paint Couture. It's a 2-step, and you put one on. I'm going in a kind of a crosshatch motion with a fan brush because I want little tiny crackle on it, and I'm going to do that to all 3. So after that step 1 is dry, this is what it looks like. You can't really see any crackle yet because that occurs after you put step 2 on. And I'm going to go over this and put step 2 on and let that dry. So you put step 1 on, you let that dry. It takes about a half hour to 45 minutes. And then you put step 2 on, and I always leave it for about an hour just to dry naturally. It doesn't work very well if you try and use a heat gun. It can kind of bubble like a top coat or whatever, and it doesn't crack as well. So I always try and just let it dry by itself, and I usually give it about 45 minutes to an hour. So after step 2 is dry, you still can't see the cracks, and that's why we're going to go ahead and put this glaze on. And this is from Paint Couture. And this is, I believe, this is Van Dyke Brown. And I go over the whole thing. And if you wanted to use some different glazes that are a little bit lighter, you can do that. I find if you use a really, really light one, you can't really see the cracks as much. And I'm going for kind of a vintage look. And I also went over all of the castings to kind of bring them out. And I'm taking a wet wipe and I'm wiping a good portion of it off. And I do that to all 3. And one thing I also did is took that wipe that I used to wipe everything off and I went over the back of it so they would have some of the Van Dyke Brown on it. And now I'm using my Venetian gold and going over all of the castings just with my finger, just to put a little gold on there. And I do that to all 3, to the bottom portion and the top. And here they are. I think they turned out really cute. You could definitely not put the glaze on it and not make it as dark if you didn't want to do that, and maybe just put the gold on. But I think they turned out really cute. They're nice little shelf sitters. So we're on to project number 4. And this is one that I really love, and I just love this mold. I know they came out with a new bird mold, and I believe IOD is out of that mold, and I am too, but I do have this one. This is the birdsong mold, and it's extremely popular. I consistently sell out of this mold if you don't have it. And anytime I put these birds on something in my booth, they sell immediately. So anyway, I am just casting several of the birds. I did 2 of the large ones, 2 of the smaller ones. And I'm going to be putting them on this little tin. You've all seen them at the dollar store. They still have them, and they're great to use. But we're going to disguise it so it doesn't look like a dollar store, little planter. So I'm going to take my castings and of course put my Tite Bond on and make sure that I have glue all the way to the ends. And these are pretty big and pretty heavy, so you want to make sure you have a good amount of glue, not too much, but enough. And I always take some tape, just because of gravity, and they're so heavy that I put that tape on there for about an hour to 2 hours to let that glue kind of set up to where it's supporting those castings, because otherwise they will slide and they will move. And now I'm going to put some smaller birds on the side and then another bigger one on the back. And I'm going to try and be very, very careful not to smush them. Then after about an hour, you don't need the tape anymore, and they should be on there pretty good. They're not completely dry at this point, but they're getting pretty hard. So we're going to go over these castings with some paint to keep them from cracking so much, and then we'll let them dry overnight. And this is Paint Couture's Autumn Sage. It's a beautiful, beautiful green. And here's the next day after this has been drying all night, and I have these little feet that I buy on Amazon, and I'm going to put these on here, and I say make it look like a bathtub. But anyway, I have some quick drying glue. It's basically a super glue, and it has an accelerator with it, and it works really, really well. And I love using this stuff because I don't have to wait for it to dry, and it holds extremely well. And it works on metal, and it works on wood, and it really is fantastic glue to have. So I put it on there, and I always put too much glue, so I wipe some of it off, and then I just after I wipe off the excess glue and get everything where you want it, because you do have a few seconds even on the super glue, but then it will dry on its own. But I always use the accelerator to make sure it's dry so that I can just move on with my project. I know some people use hot glue with their, but I just use this, and I think it works very well. And after I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and take some salt wash, which is an additive that gives you texture, and I love salt wash. It not only gives you texture, but it also creates a really good bond on things. So especially on these tins, even though this is mineral paint, and Paint Couture's mineral paint has a primer and a top coat built in, and that's one reason I used it. But I'm going to stipple around those areas. Remember where we had the raised lettering? We're just going to stipple some of this salt wash around there, and that is going to completely disguise it. When you get done with this, we will not be able to see any of that. And I'm also going to use this paintbrush to go in anywhere on the castings where there's a gap between the castings and this little planter. And there's always going to be a gap no matter how well you put them down. And I always love doing this salt wash mixture to get rid of that gap, to make it look like it's a molded or carved piece. And you know, I just think it gives it a better look overall. It doesn't look like you just took a casting and glued it on something. It looks like it's part of it. And I'm going to go ahead and use this salt wash. I'm going to put it all over the entire thing, stippling. I'm going to make sure I fill in any of the gaps, like that one over there that you just saw me fill in. And at the same time, I'm going to be adding this texture all over, and I'm even going to do it on the inside as well. So after I've let that completely dry, I'm going over my entire piece with Fusion's liming wax. It's a white wax. I love their waxes, guys. They are so creamy and wonderful. They're not liquidy, but they're super creamy and fluffy. So I'm going to go over the whole thing and make sure I get in all of those little places, and it's really going to help show off these castings. And the other thing is the salt wash added texture to the whole piece, so it's going to catch on all of that salt wash, and it's really going to give this a really good look to it. I mean, the liming is like it says, it makes it look like it's old and you know, been sitting out in the weather for a while. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wipe and I'm going to start wiping off a really good portion of this liming. Of course, it's going to stick in all of the parts and then all of the salt wash. And now what I'm doing is I have Conservatory by Fusion, and I am just taking a fan brush and I'm dry brushing over the tops of all of the birds just to give them a little bit more definition. And then I'm taking my my vintage texture stamp from IOD, and there's one that makes it look like it's cracked pieces that I'm putting around the top. And then I'm going to take the portion of it that shows crackle. It comes with 4 different sets of stamps, and there's a multitude of stamps. I think IOD is out. I have one of these left, I believe. I might have some more at my locations too that I'll put on my website, but I know I have one. And I just go over it in different places because I want it to have that crackle effect without actually having to have real crackle. And then I'm taking my wipe and I'm wiping back the ink, and I used IOD black permanent ink. And then what I'm doing is I am using something called Grit. It's by Sweet Pickins. I really, really love this, especially when I'm using white wax, because the thing that I don't like about white wax is when you're trying to make something look old, to me it doesn't look very authentic that it would be all white. And adding this gray, it catches on to where the wax is in different spots. It gives it a more authentically old look. And so I'm brushing off the excess and adding where I need to, and then brushing it off. And this will dry on there and be permanent. It will dry in with the wax that you already have on there. And to me, it gives it a lot more authentic look. And here it is done. and I think it turned out really, really nice. And just think, this was just a little tin from the Dollar Tree, and we made it into something that it would be really pretty to have an arrangement on there, or you could just put keys in it or something like that. Put your remotes in it, but it's really pretty. Okay, we're on to projects 5 and 6, and this is similar to the last one we did, but I am going to be using some more molds again, and this time I am going to be using the Toadstool mold. And this tin that I got, this planter, came from Dollar General, and it was $2.50 because it was half price off. It was $5 and then 50% off, so it's $2.50. And I'm cutting that big toadstool that I had just cast and putting it together. And I basically just cast a bunch of different sizes, and I'm putting them on that tin. And now I've moved on to the second tin. I bought 2 of them, so it'll total of $5 for 2 of them, and they're really big. And this one I am using the new mold that IOD came out with called Wild Berries, and I'm using the little blackberry portion of it. And when I cast it, I didn't rub hard enough on the middle part, but I'm just using my palette knife to take off all the extra pieces. And I'm going to go ahead and be casting this 4 times and some little pieces as well. And I'm going to be putting this on my tin. And what's really great about this tin is it fits these really, really well. Now, I did not tape this on. What I did, and here's a little trick, is I went ahead and used my heat gun to kind of dry that glue a little so it would stay on for a while. And after they've all dried for at least an hour, I go ahead and I take the tape off, and I started painting over them, and I'm going over the castings. They're still soft, but they're still pretty, they're getting pretty hard. And I'm trying to go over everything, but I'm being very careful not to press down and lose too much of the definition in the castings. And I'm using Fusion's Algonquin. It's a beautiful beigey color. It's very, very popular. I'm not even sure if I'm saying it right, but it's a very popular color. And so I'm going to go over both of these planters and completely cover the castings. I'm not looking for perfection here. And I'm also going to do 1 coat on the inside because I am painting the inside of all of these. And I let those dry overnight, and then I'm going to take my salt wash again, and I get out 2 scoops, and then I think, oh wait, I only need 1, and then I remembered, oh wait, I have 2 of them to do, so I go back and put some more in. And you can measure. I think they say to do 50-50, but I just kind of eyeball it and get it to the texture that I want. And so I'm putting some paint in there. Obviously you can tell I did not measure. And I'm going to go ahead and mix that up and get it to a pretty, I would say, probably about cake batter consistency. And I'm going to use that to go in all of those little gaps that I was pointing out. And we're going to go ahead and use a smaller brush, and I'm going to get in close to the edges. Now, I don't go over my castings with this mixture because I don't want to lose that definition. And if you put a bunch of salt wash on top of them, then you will lose a lot of your definition, and we don't want to do that. So I just go in through the whole thing and go along the edges. And then I do the same thing with the one with the wild berries on it. And now this one's a lot more detail. And I also make sure that after I go in there and get all those edges and gaps, I go in and I put the salt wash all over the planter so that the whole thing has that same texture to it. And I even go on the inside and the bottom so it all has the consistent texture. And after I let that dry completely, I'm going to be using Sweet Pickins milk paint. And milk paint is a powdered paint that you add water. So, you know, half of it is going to be your powder and then the other half, equal parts, will be water. And I'm actually mixing two colors. I'm mixing the Antique Ironstone, that's the new color that just came out by Jamie Marie Vintage, and then also Window Pane, which is a little bit lighter. And I think I did 2 ironstones and 1 window pane. And you can very easily mix milk paint. And I added my water, and I'm going to mix it up really well. And you should let it sit about 10 minutes. It starts to thicken up a little. Milk paint's always a little bit more watery anyway, but if you let it sit out, it'll get a little thicker. And now what I'm doing is I'm going over my planter, and I'm not trying to be perfect. I don't care if I get all of it. I'm just trying to go one coat over the top, and if I miss some spots, that's okay. It's definitely more than dry brushing, but I'm making sure that I go over the whole thing. And I'm also going to do the inside as well, because I want it all to kind of match later. And I did put the salt wash mixture on that. And now I'm going over the other one and I'm doing exactly the same thing. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking my heat gun and I'm going to be drying both of these with my heat gun, and that will facilitate more cracking. And I'm letting those dry, and I let them dry completely. And now I'm going to go over these with a Sweet Pickins oil wax, and this is the dark. And if you do not want it to change the color of your milk paint, you probably should go over this with a clear sealer first so it doesn't absorb so much into your paint, but I wanted it to change the color. So I'm going over the whole thing and the inside as well, and it's very, very liquidy. It's just basically oil. And I personally don't think anything works better than the oil wax. I'm not wax, the dark oil. It's not a wax, because it gets into all those little fine lines that even a wax doesn't do. I mean, a wax will to some extent, but this definitely goes and it gets in all of those little tiny cracks and crevices, and that you really can't get that effect, I think, with anything else that I've tried anyway. And I do the inside as well, and then I start wiping back, and you can see it did change the color of my paint that I put on there. Before it was a lot lighter. And of course I'm going to leave it in all the little crevices and things like that. But this is going to set in all of those little cracks that the milk paint created. I'm going to make sure I get the inside out. Now it looks shiny, but when this dries, it dries completely flat. Very, very flat. So it's kind of deceiving. And it will dry a little bit lighter too. And now what I'm doing is I'm using Fusion's Raw Silk, and you can see I wiped off a lot of the paint. This is called dry brushing, and I'm just going over the tops with the fan brush. I like to use a fan brush for this because you have more control. You don't have big clumps. And I'm going over all of the castings and part of the actual planter. So now I'm doing the same thing on the other one, and I'm dry brushing. You see I'm offloading most of the paint, and then I'm going over the tops. And this will blend in more. It will kind of soak into that oil wax. And part of the reason I did it with this fusion paint is it has a built-in sealer, and I don't have to worry about resealing it. Although I did go over these with a spray clear flat because of the chipping. I didn't want it to chip off more. Anyway, this is how they looked. To me, they look like chippy old pieces that you would have had in your yard forever. Authentically old. And this is from just a $2.50 planter that we got at Dollar General. So this is projects number 7 and 8. And I promise this one is not a planter, kind of, sort of. Okay, so this is the new vintage brooches mold. And I am casting one of these. This is a good size one. And then I have the olive crest mold. I just wanted to show you, if you don't have the vintage brooches, there are other pieces that IOD has out there that you can use. But I think this olive crest, this little label thing here has been used like crazy. And I'm using my my brayer. I have a brayer I use for ink, and then I have one that I use for clay. Anyway, so I'm just getting it in there nice and flat. So we're going to have two basically little labels. And now I'm getting out some of the new stamps by IOD. This is Countryside Memoirs, and then the other one's Insignia. And I'm just looking for something that I can put an impression on here into the clay. And I found this little bird, and I think it's going to fit in there really well. I probably pressed a little bit too hard, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and kind of smooth around the edges there. And now I'm using the L on the Insignia. Both of these sets are amazing. They have quite a few pieces to them and masks with them, and I can't wait to really start using these. And I do junk journaling. I have a whole nother junk journal channel that I started 5 years ago, guys, that actually I have totally ignored for almost a year, so I've got to get back over there. But these would be great for junk journaling. Anyway, I have 2 Dollar Tree candlesticks here, the little glass ones you see all the time. And then I have 2 little rounds that I got from the Dollar Tree. And I'm using Paint Couture's primer. And this is the gray primer. And I'm actually going to use it as a paint as well. It's going to be the actual color. And we're going to go over this with the primer. And then I'm going to use that same glue that I had that has the quick dry spray, the super glue. And I'm going to go ahead and lay that down to make sure I get it in the middle. We're making little tiny risers. You can see I didn't paint the bottom yet. I just glued it to the bottom. And I love doing this when I'm working on a project so I can have instant gratification and be able to work on my project. And it really does hold up. So I go ahead and paint the bottoms that we didn't have painted before, and I touch up and repaint anywhere that needs to be painted. And this primer will stick to the glass really well. So basically I go over it with 2 coats of the primer. After that's completely dry, I am just taking some white mineral paint, angelic, and I'm going over the whole thing. And then I'm taking Fusion, I don't remember what color that is, guys. It's a gray. And I'm matching the little planters. These little terracotta planters that I got. I bought them from the Dollar Tree, but I had already painted them, and I used them on another project, so I'm kind of cheating because I already painted them. But I had these little rocks or beads that I got from the Dollar Tree. I put in the bottom because we needed to weight it down. And what I did is take some foam from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to smush it down in there really tight. And what you see there is I have made like a little arch, and I just took apart a grapevine wreath that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I wired it together to make like a little arch that I'm going to stick in there. And later on I go and I put some hot glue in there after I get it in there permanently the way I want it. And I do that on both ends. And this one I thought was a little bit too thin, so I added a little bit more of the grapevine to it. And I have this rusty wire that I bought, and I also have this other wire. It's kind of a brownish wire, and I just wire stuff in. And now I'm just taking some hot glue and some reindeer moss, and I'm just gluing it to the top to cover up that foam. And I do that to both of them. Everything that I do to one, I do to the other. And now I have some pieces of this grass that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I cut it down to be a good size. It's a lot taller, and I cut it in half basically. And I'm taking a bunch of pieces together, and I'm going to make like a little pick. I'm just going to wrap my wire around the bottom, and then I'm going to use it to just stick in the back of this because I want some grass showing in the back. And I have these little cement bunnies. Now, I did not get these from the Dollar Tree. I got these from Amazon last year, and I will see if I can find them. I think they came in a pack of 4, and I'm going to put those on top. And I've got these little tiny white picks of, I don't know what they are. They're just little white flowers that I cut apart, and I'm going to stick those in there, and I'm going to hot glue them so they stay permanently. In case you're wondering, I do, when I'm done, hot glue the bunnies on top of there so they don't fall off. They're heavy. They're like cement or something. So I got these pig berries 4th of July. They had red, white, and blue. So think outside the box on the holidays and look around, because I use these all Christmas, and I use the red ones all Christmas. And I'm just wrapping that around that grapevine wreath on top. And I'm going to, of course, do that to both of them. And then I have some little pieces of greenery that I cut off of a pick that I got from the Dollar Tree. I just thought it looked proportionate to this, and I'm just going to put this greenery at the top of the grapevine wreath, and I'm going to wire it in. I'm putting 2 of them to kind of sit at the top of the arch, just to kind of decorate it up a little bit. And I'm wiring it in, and I'm going to wire it in so it'll bend toward the middle. And now what I'm doing is I'm taking our little riser that we made, and I'm doing a circle of hot glue. And I'm just going to take some Spanish moss, and I'm going to go all the way around that. I just do a combination of different mosses to where it looks natural to me. And of course I'm going to trim back what I need to, add more what I need to. You know, it's just a process. I'm leaving the middle clear so that I can put my little planter. This other moss stuff that I got it, I don't even know for sure where I got it from, but it's actually a synthetic, and I thought, oh, I was kind of disappointed when I got it, but I really, really like it because it looks natural, but you can kind of spread it where you want it. And now I have this little thing of these little eggs, and I'm picking through them trying to find some white eggs. And I'm going to put a few eggs next to the bunnies. I'm sorry you can't see everything I'm doing. But anyway, I just basically glued down some white. I don't know what I'm going to do with the others. I'm probably going to have to paint them all white. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's the end of that process. It was super easy. And here they are. I think they're really, really cute. And this is just all from stuff I got from the dollar store. Oh, and I didn't film it. I did put some glaze on the actual mold itself. I never painted it, but I did put glaze to define the casting. And that's all I did. So project number 9. Now this one is from the wild berries mold also, but this is the strawberry part of it. And this one's going to look a lot different than the other ones that we've done, I promise. So I went ahead and cast that. And these are very detailed. They're beautiful. They're absolutely gorgeous. And I am loving all the retro stuff that I see out there, and I decided I'm going to make this retro. So we've all seen these tins at the dollar store. So we are going to do something with that. We're going to go ahead and put this casting on there. Of course, we're going to use our Titebond, and I'm going to let it dry overnight, just like we did with the others. I tape it down and let it dry overnight. And I put a lot of little pieces. They have little strawberries and stuff on there. I put those all around on there. And I'm just doing it on the front. I'm not doing the front and the back. I'm just doing the front. Just that front portion of it, just like that. And that's been dried all night. And now I'm taking this gorgeous color, which to me looks so vintage. It's called Aquamarine by Paint Couture. It's a gorgeous color, beautiful spring color, but it has that kind of, I don't know, that color that you would see in the 1950s and 60s all the time. And now what I'm doing is I am going to go in and paint this casting as best I can. And I'm using Fusion's Fort York Red, Bayberry, and let's see, Conservatory. And I'm also using a little Spanish Sunrise and Autumn Sage from Paint Couture. And the key to doing this, guys, is to use a small detail brush, but don't try and go all the way to the can. Just leave a little gap there, so you just go to the right to the edge there. And that way you don't make a big mess on there. And I'm not saying I did a great job on this, but that makes it a lot easier, and it's not as daunting as you might think. It was very relaxing. I really enjoyed doing this. And because these are all so detailed and they're raised, it's actually not that hard to do it. So anyway, I do all the little strawberries, and then I come back in and I do all the flowers. And I think I used Angelic by Paint Couture for the flowers. It's a really pretty white. And I went ahead and did all of them with the white. I'm coming in with my Bayberry, and I'm going to go ahead and put that all over the green. I do the green last, and then I'm going to take Conservatory, which is a lighter green, and I'm going to go over the darker green, and then I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to blend it basically, and I'm going to add the two greens in there and just go over wherever I think it needs to be. And then I said I did the green last, but actually I did the yellow. This is the Spanish Sunrise, that beautiful light yellow color. And I go in and I do the middle of the white flowers, and then I go a little bit on the flower with the white or with the yellow. And that's pretty much how I painted the top. And I didn't do a great job, but I let it dry completely, and then I went over it with Fusion's Liming, the white wax. And this is what's going to make it look good, even though I didn't paint it that well, is it's going to kind of blend it all together. And it's just going to look like I don't know, it's going to look better than it did a minute ago. So you guys take your time, but I actually had a great time doing it. I really did. It was really very relaxing. So I'm going to go over the whole thing. I'm going over the inside and the outside with this white wax. And I didn't have to seal this because all of the paints that I used had a built-in sealer. They were all mineral paints. But This will seal it again also, and I'm going to wipe off most of this white wax. I'm going to leave a lot of it in the all of the little you know details of the casting, but I'm going to wipe off a lot on the top. And I'm going to take a little brush and kind of scoop out any spots that have too much wax in it. But you can see how that wax just kind of made it all blend together, and it made my terrible painting look much better than it actually was. So you can do this. The key is when you're painting, don't try and go all the way. Don't try and meet the actual surface that you're painting on. Just go over the tops and go right up to the edge, and it makes it a lot easier. So look how much better that looks. And now what I'm doing is I'm taking that Fort York Red by Fusion, and I'm going over the handles and the rim on top and the rim on bottom, because I kind of want this to just look like a vintage piece that you might see in the 1950s or something. And to me, the red and this turquoise color seem like that's I don't know why in my head they go together. Y'all tell me if you think I got that right. Y'all ever notice when you're using red, it gets everywhere? It just does. It shows up everywhere. So I'm going to go around the bottom, and that's a lot easier than you think. And I'm really not trying to be perfect, because this is supposed to look vintage and old. And I'm going to go over the top with this whole thing. It's really actually not that hard. The hardest part was just keeping the red off of my fingers so it didn't get all over my piece. And when I'm done, I let all that dry, and I go over this with a coat of clear coat in gloss, because I wanted this to look glossy. Made it to the end, and this is super. I'm not even doing it. I'm just going to show you the finished product. This is exactly like the other green one that we did, only I did it in white. I used Fusion's Raw Silk, and I used a brown wax instead of a white wax, and everything else is pretty much the same. If you need any Fusion paint, Paint Couture, Sweet Pickins Milk Paint, IOD, Decoupage paper, you can visit my website at rehatchdesigns.com. $50, you get free shipping, flat rate shipping of $8 under that. Also, if you're new to my website, you get a 10% discount off of everything. So I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please like and subscribe. The best thing to do for me, because I never know what day my videos are going to come out, is to just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, and hit the notification bell. That way you know when I have videos coming out. It also helps my channel, but it helps you. It lets YouTube know what type of videos you like, so they send more to you. And I really appreciate you watching, and I hope to see you guys again soon. You take care. Bye bye now.